Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Tuan and Pun. Did I get it right? Thank you. I'm almost there. All right. I talked to Steve just now. It's always a challenge in the afternoon to attend seminar or training after lunch in particular. All right. So I hope my presentation will not make you sleep. All right. Okay. I'm not greedy. I just want certain part of my presentation you will find it interesting. That's what I want. All right. Today I'm going to share with you the preparedness of airport towards the emergency response, crisis management, and business continuity planning. All right. Now, for the next half an hour or so, I'm going to touch on these 5 subjects. I'm sorry, that should be 4 subjects. You see, I'm sleeping now. Emergency and crisis management and BCP policy and process is the first one. Then I move on to talk about the integrated airport center, which is the nerve center of an airport, an international airport in particular. And then we have the airport emergency center to deal with crisis and emergency situation. And I will further explain on the crisis management, what's the relationship between the crisis management and the airport emergency center. And then final part is the business continuity response. All right, first thing come first. Okay, I will talk about the policy and process of emergency and crisis management at Hong Kong International Airport, of course, without forgetting business continuity planning. All right, we all know this word crisis is not something new to us. However, the fundamental is the same, but in different industry, the definition may be slightly different. So, before I go on, let us look at the brief definition of crisis from the airport operator's perspective. All right. So it says here that a crisis is any critical event requiring an immediate proactive response in order to minimize its negative impacts to the airport operations, reputation, and profitability. Now here I want to stress on the word, immediate, proactive, and then minimize the impact. All right. So this is the key of the crisis definition from an airport operator's perspective. All right. So talk about crisis. What are these crises? Okay. Most of you, in particular in this part of the world, is familiar with this word SARS, S-A-R-S, in 2003. Now SARS, is a severe acute respiratory syndrome. At that time in 2003, which is really something very scary and powerful, if you like, because in the very first beginning, people, they didn't know what's happening. I remember the disease was brought to Hong Kong by a university professor in mainland China. He stayed in a hotel and he spread out from there. Unfortunately, he went to another, what they call an apartment estate, is a residential area, visited friends, relatives, something like that, and then it also spread out from there. At the end of the day, the government has to isolate that entire estate in order to find out the reason how and why, the disease can transmit it so fast. All right, going back to what I want to say today, public health is actually one of the potential crises. This morning, you heard about something like Ebola, right? Now we have the MERS, the Middle East respiratory syndrome as well. And of course, like Dr. Goh said, how would you know the H7N9, I can't remember all those code anyway. There's a lot of this kind of pandemic disease, going on every day. But I can tell you, in 2003, the disaster is something like, because people, they don't know what happened. And then the entire travel industry, of course, including aviation, was badly affected. Now, I want to say here is that airport business is something what I call flow business, F-L-O-W. So we are talking about people flow, cargo, baggage, and of course money as well. Now SARS at that time, really have a very powerful impact, to the airport operation. I remember most of the flights are cancelled, but you're surprised. What are the flights that, they still maintain this schedule? I repeat the word schedule service. For example, they operate 5 times a week or they operate daily. They still maintain the service, you guess, it's African carrier. If I remember correct, Ethiopian and Kenya Airways, all right? They operate as normal. If you look at Singapore Airlines, Malaysian, even Cathay Pacific, they either cancel the flight or scale down the operation. So that is something we learned in 2003. We must have a procedure to deal with the pandemic disease, Like Dr. Goh mentioned earlier on this morning, because of, now we have Ebola, probably people would not just say something, a procedure to deal with the SARS or MERS, it is something probably you need to expand to cover what we call the pandemic disease. All right, another potential crisis is weather. Hong Kong is very used to different type of adverse weather, if you like. Adverse weather means tropical cyclone or typhoon, thunderstorm, lightning, landslide, torrential rain, all right? These are the things that will cause trouble. If you look at the slide here, that was a landslide case happened on the airport highway, okay? So the entire airport highway had to be closed. So what we had at that time was the airport express train. Other than that, there's nothing. That is a very good lesson learned that, the Hong Kong government, I'm not talking about airport alone, did come up with something about, what we call, this highway, by the way, we call it Lantau Highway, L-A-N-T-A-U, Lantau is the name, all right? So we developed a program or a procedure called low land link. That means in case incidents like this, there's low land link, what are we going to do to move our passengers, our staff, and our cargo? Bear in mind, Hong Kong is also a major cargo hub in this part of the world. All right, security crisis, I don't have to mention too much on this. And as you know, because of the unfortunate incident happened earlier this year, so this is high on the agenda. All right, in addition to what I said, now we have also other potential crises. Just look at the field. Of course, aircraft accident is one thing which is very important. Being an airport operator, we pay very special attention on how to deal with aircraft accidents. I'm going to touch a little bit more later on about this. And then IT failures, cyber crimes, labor disputes, use supplies. We had our ground handling agents, people on strike. We had our, what we call Hong Kong-based airlines, they go on strike, all right? These are the things that will also bring the airport to some sort of chaotic situation. Civil unrest, touch wood, at the moment, we never experience, okay? Typhoon is something, as I said, it's very common. Every year we encounter at least 3, 4, 5, or sometimes 6 tropical cyclones visiting Hong Kong. And with great fortune, this year, we had only 1 or 2, but they are not heading towards this direction. There again, I'm going to touch a little bit more about typhoons handling later on. Earthquake, Fortunately, we were not affected. Tsunami, yes and no. Why I said yes and no? Although we are not in the earthquake zone as far as Hong Kong is concerned, but the expert says that, in case there's any earthquake or tsunami happened in Manila Trench, it will more or less affect Hong Kong, but probably the degree of, its impact is less. All right, so talking about all those crises, let us look at these 3 photos. Now, you see a lot of baggage lying on the floor. That is our departure baggage handling system, or you call it departure baggage makeup area, if you like. This is the area the airlines load the baggage onto the containers, all right, for wide-body aircraft, of course. For those smaller aircraft, they use trolley and transfer it onto the plane side and do it manually. Now, you see, a lot of baggage was lying on the floor. Why? I remember this was because after a typhoon, the airport was going to recover, all right? Now, the recovery part is very important. Bear in mind, you have X number of flights cancelled, all right, because of the typhoon on 1 or 2 particular days. These flights are rolled on to the following days, right? Of course, by simple mathematics, you just add X number with the normal scheduled flight number. But it's not so simple as that. You have to bear in mind the airlines, have limited number of aircraft. One flight delay will have a knock-on effect on the others. So, in other words, to make it very simple, it's chaotic. All right? The airlines has to struggle with their what they call aircraft redeployment, aircraft rotation. And again, remember, not only aircraft, manpower, they have crew restriction as well. Because the crew are subject to a very strict roster hours, they have a sort of what they call minimum rest time. I'll give you a very good example. Imagine a London-Hong Kong flight, all right, diverted to Taiwan, for example, okay? Taiwan is a nearby, what we call the alternate port for Hong Kong due to weather, okay? Now, don't think so easily that the aircraft will be positioned back to Hong Kong in the next 1-2 hours. Let me explain to you why. Once the aircraft, or rather, I take a step backward. Before the aircraft diversion, the crew will try to make a second attempt or will wait for the weather to clear to enter into the airport. I tell you, in aviation, sometimes it really depends on your luck. Because during the typhoon weather or thunderstorm weather, by the time you enter the Hong Kong one-way, if the weather is a little bit clear or the wind is not so strong, in particular, I talk about the crosswind. Crosswind is very damaging to aircraft operation. It may cause an accident, all right? So the aircraft, if comes in at the wrong time, it won't be able to land. However, if you are lucky, you may have some preceding aircraft that they were not able to land, but by the time you approach the one-way, the weather loves you, so that, the wind calm down, they don't have wind shear, that sort of abnormal operation. Then you may be able to make it. Okay, let's say you couldn't make it after maybe 1 time, 2 times, you don't have enough fuel. So you ask for a diversion permission. So you arrive at Taipei. When you reach Taipei, remember, London-Hong Kong flying hours is almost 13 hours, depends on whether you are headwind or, tailwind. Regardless of this factor, all right, the crew are also subject to a maximum duty hour. Don't forget, the flying time is 13 hours plus all those diversion, trial landing, go around, probably it end up 15 hours already. Bear in mind, when the weather is bad, what we normally call up in the air, there's a holding pattern. Holding pattern means the aircraft are queuing up, just like traffic jam in Kuala Lumpur, all right? So, by the time you reach Taiwan, it's already 15 hours, but hang on. The story doesn't finish here. You have to add on the crew reporting time, all right? Because they need to prepare the aircraft. That also count duty hours. And also the off-duty time. Off-duty time depends on the airline. or the